What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Latin Explaining with Denise. For those who do not know me, my name is Denise Gonzalez, and for those who do, you guys know how we do it here. I see that Johnny, Self Styles, Morena, and Jose already started the chat. Welcome, hola, guys. I hope everybody's having an amazing Sunday, prepping for another productive week. And if it's an unproductive week and you're on a vacation, because we're still in the middle of the summer, enjoy yourself. Have a relaxing week. I cannot wait for my vacation. I'm just putting that out there. So, welcome, guys. Before we start today's show, I want to encourage everybody to hit that like button. Also, if you haven't subscribed, it's time to do so. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me grow my platform. So definitely, guys, hit that like button. Now, before we start, I want to give a big shout out to Christina on her 10K subscribers. If you guys have not seen her video, go over there, show her some love. And if you have not subscribed, then obviously subscribe. But trust me, we're all very happy for her. So definitely go check the video out. And also, I want to remind you guys of the Melanated Nights echo chamber that's happening now. If you have not subscribed, I will wait to see if Melanated Night will show up. If he shows up, I'll ask him to share the link so that you can actually subscribe if you haven't done so. Okay. I believe he's gonna introduce some other things in his channel. Let's stay tuned and we'll figure it out what he's trying to do now and introduce to his channel. So definitely go subscribe to MK's Echo Chamber. Now, guys, without any further ado, let's just start today's topic. You guys know how we do it here. I know this is a very different time for everybody to be watching me. You usually allow me in your spaces only Mondays and Thursdays, but it had to be spoken about. So let's get the show started.
Take it to the next level.
That's right, guys. Today's topic, even though it's going to be, will Puerto Rico ever become a state? There are some things that have transpired in the last few months regarding statehood. You guys know that we have had, I believe, 5 referendums, if not more than that, asking us the question since the 1960 if we wish to become a state or not. So definitely, this is something that has caused a lot of division among us Puerto Ricans, simply because some people believe that proximity with the United States will bring actually um, a solution to our fiscal problem and also our financial problem, and others think that it will sink us even further. So of course, for the first time, in the referendum, I believe it was the last one was one of the highest percentages where people actually voted for the status to be changed to statehood. So unfortunately, I don't share that ideology, but I respect everybody that does. But something that was very interesting to me, and I shared on my Instagram, was that, Congressman Tom McClintock, he made some points that I want to share with you guys, and I'll come back with the rest of my commentary.
Seems to me to be quite unambiguous. It would automatically make Puerto Rico a state upon a Puerto Rican referendum. And we've heard many reasons why this may or may not be in the interests of Puerto Rico. That is a question for Puerto Rico. The question that Congress must decide is whether that's in the interest of the United States as a whole to admit Puerto Rico as a state. That's the responsibility that this bill would completely abrogate. I find that shocking and very strongly. disassociate myself from the support that's been expressed for that on behalf of the minority. Uh, to me, this bill sidesteps fundamental questions that arise from statehood. And let's start with the impact of taxation. Many Puerto Ricans are exempt from federal income taxes that they would have to pay under statehood. The General Accounting Office has estimated that the added tax burden that would accompany statehood could cause enormous job losses and additional on this issue. HR 1522. That's not the kind of convincing mandate that should decide the fundamental political relationship between Puerto Rico and the United States for all eternity. The impact of additional taxation will accompany statehood, the imposition of an official language opposed by a large majority of Puerto Rico, and the strong minority sentiments in Puerto Rico for independence, free association, or continued Commonwealth status set the stage for catastrophic civil unrest if statehood should be imposed on such a slender, fragile, and perhaps transitory majority. The question we need to ask is whether admitting Puerto Rico as a state makes our country stronger or weaker. That's the crucial question that I'm shocked and saddened to see my party content to simply ignore. This abrogates our responsibility under the Constitution and instead leaves this far.
Now, guys, you guys heard Tom McClintock make some points, and as cringeworthy as some of his comments were to actually hear, in the majority of his statements, he is right. Okay, like, first of all, out of every in on average, out of every 10 Puerto Ricans, 8 don't speak English, and that is a fact. So that's 80% of your population don't even speak the language of the country. So when you have people coming from all kinds of places expecting people to speak the native language of the country that they're associated to now, um, we can't even speak it. Therefore, how are we going to work? How are we going to do transactions? How are people are supposed to, get stuff done? What if they have to go to an agency? How will they understand the law? I don't know if you guys agree with me on this one, but English is one of the first things that unfortunately is a roadblock for statehood. The second one that he brought was the issue of taxation, and it is true. It's completely known that in Puerto Rico we don't pay a few federal income tax. We only paid state income tax, and also unless you have like a business and whatnot, then you pay that tax. But our government has definitely tax us up the ass. So we paid way more taxes as a free associated state or a U.S. territory than actually paying federal income taxes. So in that one specifically, I agree, but also disagree with him because, like I said, there's a lot of taxes that we can cut off if we are to become a state, because we are not going to need to be funding those things in that specific way, and it will restructure the way certain things are paid and how many funds we're going to have access to. Because let's not forget, even though we are U.S. citizens, we have fewer constitutional rights in Puerto Rico as U.S. citizens. We don't have the same Bill of Rights that U.S. citizens in the United States have. So, of course, it's going to restructure uh, the island of Puerto Rico. And something that he said really stuck with me, which is like, if you think about it, you know, imposing this, because it wasn't like a big majority that voted for statehood. It was 53 and 47% oppose it. So you still have a split in half. I see that Risa Ram says, I think Puerto Rico might lose its sovereignty and possibly its identity if it becomes a state. You know what's crazy? Yesterday we were talking on the backstage, like the after show with who. And Marcelo brought up a good point with, we have rooster fights. That's part of our culture. And since America in its inception, its violence inception in Puerto Rico, we have been losing chunks of our culture and practices that, have been done before, since we were established, as a sovereign little island in the 1860s. And to be honest with you, they now deem it as illegal, therefore we cannot do it, and doing it can even involve jail time as a penalty. So those are chunks that we're already losing of our identity, but people are not seeing that clear because we have been put in a position of deciding either if we want to continue in the status we are, which is actually eating up at the core of our people and its economy, or if we want to associate with people we actually do not even like simply because we're desperate. So of course, it's definitely something that I agree with you, Risa Realm. Puerto Rico becoming a state will accelerate the erasure of our identity for sure. I see that Christina says, interesting. I think it was more evenly split between people who speak it and those who don't know. If you go visit Puerto Rico, you're going to struggle if you don't speak the language, if you don't speak Spanish, unless you stay in touristic areas like possibly Old San Juan, Condado, maybe Santurce, and sometimes even Piñones, like more like that area, Isla Verde and whatnot. But if you go into like the interior part of the island, finding somebody that speaks English to you, it's going to require that many people start asking people around to actually translate to you. So of course, if you don't speak Spanish, make sure you travel with somebody that does, because otherwise you will have to, find people to actually talk to you. Like Morena said, please, as you come in, hit that like button, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much, Morena. I see that JS is here. Hi, how are you? Welcome. And yes, so definitely when he introduced that part, um when he was talking about the, okay, we already talked about the taxes, the language. Now we're talking about the civil unrest. If you have almost half of the people, and I would say it's even more than half, because a lot of us that are pro independence had to unfortunately leave because the 3% that we're missing to actually have a voice in Puerto Rico, it's silenced by the 53% that always vote for the same people that are screwing us in the ass and are closing opportunities for us. So unfortunately, with a heavy heart, we have to leave our people behind, come here, make a living, and then if we want to come back, if we are successful at it. So to be honest with you, a lot of us didn't vote it, and we actually can vote from afar for the referendum. I believe we should be included as well. If your birth certificate says Puerto Rico, or if you identify as a Puerto Rican, then you're Jibaros as well, So definitely you should have a say in if the island should become a state or not. My problem is when other people that do not understand what's going on, and that includes people in the island and outside of the island. If you don't know what's going on, please do not vote. Fuck this for us, okay? I'm sorry to put it out there. But definitely, it's something that it's super crazy to me, um, that we will not think about the repercussions of that. Okay, while we have the restructuring, let's say tomorrow we have the reality infinity stone and we just use it to actually change Puerto Rico's reality and become a state all of a sudden without cutting through all the red tape, right? um the restructuration, or the reshaping of how the island will function now as a state, will pause Puerto Rico's economy for at least a year, because everything will be set back. We will have so much backlog of stuff because now everybody has to relearn how to do things to comply with state and federal laws in a different way, because our relationship with the US will change. So it's like when you're getting married. When you're getting married, you have to go file for the license and whatnot and do all this extra paperwork. Now imagine a nation doing that with a territory. It's going to be messy. So you have a large number that does not want that. And on top of that, you have the $72 billion debt on top of the people, austerity measures. We still do not know if they're going to keep the ley promesa, because the oversight board that President Obama appointed for Puerto Rico, because he did not want it to grant us a Chapter 9 like he did to the state of Florida. Um, you know, we don't know if the US is going to still impose that oversight board that is making us go through austerity measures, and if it's going to stay in place. Because let's not forget that since the 1960s, the US, I mean, Puerto Rican politicians have been asking the US and Congress to actually establish a clear path to statehood so that we could comply if we want to become a state. They have never answered, and it's been 60 years almost. So definitely, we don't know. They can put any requirement they want to actually grant us to incorporate into their nation. So of course, I think they will still keep the oversight board. I am not 100% sure, but to be honest with you, that's one of the things that will cause a lot of unrest, because like I said, you have to add, it's like a perfect storm. You're adding the $72 billion debt that we're carrying over, the austerity measures that people are already protesting for. Half of the police force even quit and resigned because they were not getting paid a livable wage because of the austerity measures. On top of that, the retirees that are having their retirement funds cut simply because they have to pay the debt that our corrupt politicians created. Then you have the whole transitional part where people are going to start relearning things, and you have the conflict with the language. Now, let's talk about interpersonal relationships with actual Americans. We don't even like gringos. We don't consider them part of ourselves. So how are we supposed to relate to them? When we see them, we know what's up. The only small community that we have good relationships with, to the point that they have a small community in the east side of our island, is African Americans. But in reality, African Americans are not the majority of the United States. So outside of them, can we really have good relationships with the rest of the Americans? We don't even like Logan and Jake Paul. Look at how we're treating them. Imagine if we get droves of them coming into our island. It's going to be a catastrophe. And that's what I have to agree in that aspect with Tom McClintock when he said that there will be catastrophic civil unrest. And I believe it because I have heard from many people that I shall not mention saying that they'd rather burn down the island than to see it become a state. So imagine what will happen if this keeps being pushed by a lot of people. So definitely look at Rita Rome, ew, the polls. Yeah, a lot of people, want them to go away. In Puerto Rico, they're not being welcome with open arms and whatnot. So definitely, it's something that it's semi irritating, but at the same time, it's realistic. This is what will happen. We're having I would say, like a special premiere taste of what statehood will look like for Puerto Rico. And right now, a lot of people do not know how to cohabitate with all these gringos that are moving in just to seek a tax haven. So definitely, you guys know my ideals are pro-independence. I believe Puerto Rico will have a better chance being emancipated from the U.S. Probably still have good relationships with the U.S., like a diplomatic relationship, not living in like bad terms and whatnot. But other than that, we should just you know, become independent, or at least let us have our inter-independence. You know, you still watch over us, we still have to serve in the military and whatnot, but you know, we make our own laws. That will work better. But it's time. I believe Puerto Rico will never become a state. That's just the way I see it, simply because I don't know if you guys catch at the beginning of what Tom McClintock was saying when he said that the crucial question, I'm going to play it again so you guys can see what he initially said. But when he said the initial question is like if it benefits the US, and I'm going to explain
That's
later
not the
on what
kind
he
of thing
said.
on this issue. HR 1522 seems to me to be quite unambiguous. It would automatically make Puerto Rico a state upon a Puerto Rican referendum. And we've heard many reasons why this may or may not be in the interests of Puerto Rico. That is a question for Puerto Rico. The question that Congress must decide is whether that's in the interests of the United States as a whole.
You guys heard him. So, you know, it's not in their best interest because we are thank you, Rakim, for the donation. Thank you very much. um it's not in the best interest for the United States to integrate super swamped in debt little island, little territory that they still have. Why do they have to do all the extra work? So, for all of you guys that are pro statehood, I am so sorry for y'all. You know, we're not going to become a state. You're going to die and you're not going to see it. I'm going to die and I'm not going to see it. Your kids will die and they're not going to see it. Okay. We're not going to become a state. I believe that, you know, Guam will become a state before us. But that's just my guess based on my own studies and my own reading. I believe that is the next step, and that's the only place that the United States is focused on right now. It's it will be make Guam first a state rather than us. So I don't see it happening. Like I said, as long as we are in debt. I started reading, guys, something before I let people in because I know I talked to you guys yesterday so that you could join, especially the Puerto Ricans that listen to me. I started reading, like I mentioned briefly yesterday backstage, the discourses of anti-corruption and the culture of corruption, or corruption of culture, by Gabriela Coronado in the University of Western Sydney. And she was mainly focused on Mexican corruption. But to be honest with you, I think she fell short because the same corruption that we're seeing in Mexico, it's happening all over Latin America. Okay. It was just that, of course, everybody sees us as Mexican, so might as well, you know, we're all Mexican. So anyway, back to what I was saying, you know, when she explained how the rest of the world sees Latin America, we're literally goods. We're not looked at as people or as countries and whatnot. The only reason, the only commerce that our people have, and I want you to take a deep look at your country. I don't care if even if you come from the U.S., okay, because the U.S. is right now a failed state, aside from, you know, the military, of course. But if you think about it, think about your country and think about it like this: the lower the optic image, I'm not saying it's the reality on the ground, the more a government is able to minimize the image of corruption in their country, the more benefits they will get. The more corporations from all around the world will rather go there to actually do business there, and that's what gets that country moving. Okay. The first Latin explaining episode I made, like I said before, yesterday, was talking about how Mexico and AMLO is now regulating manufacturing in Mexico, simply because there's so many different companies outsourcing labor and manufacturing in Mexico, because thanks to no Peña Nieto, thank God, but to AMLO, the face of quote unquote corruption in Mexico is coming down. He has marketed his government as a government that it's taking everything by grabbing it by the handle, that he has things under control, that he's actually innovating and doing all kinds of things. So of course you're going to bring in and attract a lot of corporations to actually come to Mexico. And they have been coming for decades now. Okay, I believe they start coming in the early 2000s. If there is some Mexicans in the chat, on the live or on the replay, let me know. Correct me if it was the early 2000s, but I believe that major factories started flooding Mexico in the early 2000s for their manufacture. So definitely when it comes to Puerto Rico, and let me tell you something, that is what I believe Mexico is getting so much bad press when it comes to their crime, is simply because they want to scare away the United States has like a love-hate relationship with every single one of us. So obviously, because Mexico is one of the closest and also biggest competition they have, and they have had bad blood for so many centuries, that of course they're going to compete with them one on one and just diss on them for their violence and whatnot, and their corruption, and do all this bad press and bad propaganda in movies and stuff, just to portray Mexico as like a dangerous criminal country, and not portraying any of the goods. So of course uh depending on the level of corruption, it's the amount of corporations that will go to your country. Now if you guys don't believe me, look at also what I've spoken here about the Nayib Bukele and what he did in El Salvador, when he decided to give the optics and make sure that the whole world knew that he fired the whole House of Representatives and the Senate of El Salvador because they were corrupt. And now, literally, not even a month after that, Bitcoin was accepted, and it had its inception in El Salvador, not long after that, I'm sorry. So, of course, that is just how this post-colonial commerce looks for Latin America or any other ex-colonies and whatnot in the world, depending depending on how much corruption it's portrayed. That's better for the outcome of the country. Now, translating it to Puerto Rico, we know we're the whole world 2 years ago asked for the resignation of our governor. That should tell you the amount of freaking corruption that we have. Do you guys think that statehood will change that optics? Do you think the United States actually wants to even embrace such a corrupt freaking state? Because let me tell you something, they know a Puerto Rican will win the governorship of Puerto Rico for at least another 200 years while we get a little bit more mixed with the United States, because Puerto Ricans will not vote for something that doesn't look like us or speak like us or behaves like us. We're still wired to vote for people that we can relate to. I see that Pamela says, the thing with Puerto Rico is everyone has a nasty opinion of us, but they don't realize that even the countries that aren't controlled by the US are in the same position as us. Yes, definitely. Look, the only difference between us and Mexicans, Central Americans, South Americans, Cubans, and Dominicans is that they're still being America's bitches just like we are. It's just that they don't get access to the citizenship that they need to still be America's bitches, simply because of history and how their countries play their cards. But of course, we're all fighting a hell of our own. So, yeah, I agree with you, Pamela. We're all in the same position. No one's better than the other. It's just we fail to see that in Latin America very often. She asked me also, have you guys gone to Puerto Rico yet? We're going next month, so stay tuned because I'm going to unplug, guys. So definitely for those of you that are watching me, next month I'm going to unplug for 30 days. I might pop up here and there to just show a sign of life, but Latin explaining will take 30 days off. I will only have pre-recorded videos. So if you want to enjoy those, of course, they will be here, but I'm not going to come live for a minute. I need a vacation. It's been almost 3 years. So, well, not really. I'm exaggerating. I think it's because 2020 felt like 2 years, okay? So it's been it's about to be 2 years and a month and some weeks. So yeah, it's been since 2019. I have not taken a vacation. Melanated Knight has not taken a vacation, and he worked through the whole 2020. I think he overworked. So of course we're both burnout. We need a vacation. So definitely, this is something that, in my opinion, like, you guys let me know in the comment section. Hi, third word, how are you? Yes, Jose, I need a vacation. Morena says, nice, a break is always good to recharge and regroup. Definitely, I need to recharge, I need to regroup, I need to just enjoy myself and eat some taco maker. So, and also some pan sobao, some Puerto Rican food. Okay. I miss that, and being around my people. That's one of the things that coming here, especially to the West Coast where there's not a lot of Puerto Ricans, you definitely miss that. So, guys, going back to the main topic, do you guys agree with me? Do you believe that Puerto Rico will never be a state, at least not in the next 100 years, 150 years? It's not going to happen in our lifetime. Or you think that Puerto Rico will become a state and it's just being in talks? I mean, let's be honest. Like I said, it will be it will be a very, I would say, catastrophic times for the island if it's to become a state. Pamela says, MK will like it. My husband loved it. Yeah, he already met some of my Puerto Rican friends here. We partied the 4th of July, not because of the independence of the US, but simply because it was an excuse to just drink and have fun. And he met some of my Puerto Rican friends, and they were telling him that he might not want to come back, which is fine because eventually we will move next year. uh, Jose says that regarding statehood, it is more likely that I will become Pope Jose. Yeah, Jose, I agree with you. It's more likely that I will become the first Puerto Rican U.S. president before Puerto Rico becomes a state. That the only way I see this happening is if we have an all Puerto Rican Congress, all Puerto Rican House of Representatives, all Puerto Rican, politicians and whatnot. That's the only way I see this happening. I don't think it's happening. And if it happens, which I highly doubt, um, it won't be beneficial. I'll tell you that much. It won't be beneficial for the people of Puerto Rico. Right now, in the state we are, the United States has no interest in making us a state. So let's just stop the fantasy. Please, the pro statehood, the estadista. I have to look for there's some kind of tab. There's some kind of tab, but I'm gonna state tabs. That's how I'm gonna call them. State tabs. It's not happening, dears. It's not happening, my guys. Okay. So, look at what Ramon said, Stay Taps. He said, Chica, if it was meant to be, it would have happened already. Of course. They would have, and not only that, Ramon, they would have done it when we were thriving in the 90s. Now, as like I said yesterday, guys, I know I have my Puerto Rican people that come here. I would like to give priority to you guys if you guys want to hop on. Also, everybody else is welcome to give your assessment as well. Um, but I just put the link in the chat. I see that Jose is here. What's up, Jose?
No, it's not Jose. It's Your Holiness Pope Jose.
Okay, Your Holiness Pope Jose. What's up?
How you doing? You know what?
Good, good.
The intellectually and mentally challenged community is growing exponentially.
I'm telling you, you were right when you said the other day when you posted that there stupid people are becoming a demographic.
Need I say more?
No, no, that was
Yes.
self-explanatory. Now we have the state taps.
Yes. So now the let's see. So now the West steps can marry the Hispano taps, and then the
The slow taps and
slow
state
taps can
taps.
marry the state taps.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
we have a perfect match.
Yeah, match made in heaven. All the taps are a fucking community.
But but you know something? I do have one question. I'm sorry, that's just my phone. I wonder how the people in Puerto Rico look on people like myself who are like first generation Puerto Rican Americans. How they look? Do they love us? Do they hate us? How do they see us?
I'm gonna tell you something. I talked to a few people that we wanted to do a stream of that related to that. But to be honest with you, I'm gonna tell you something, and I'm gonna say something also to the state taps that love to hate our jibaros in the New Yorkers, like we call the United States, right? The reason why many Puerto Ricans left, either now or in the 1940s or the 30s and whatnot, is not by choice. It was simply because they took a risk to actually give their families a better chance at surviving and prosper. So it's not their freaking fault that they came here, so at the end of the day, there is a notion, I'm not going to lie, that Puerto Ricans do not like to associate themselves, certain Puerto Ricans do not like to associate themselves with the diaspora, simply because some of you guys have different views because you're not connected. Those are the arguments. Don't come at me, I'm just explaining how it is. Certain of you guys don't have the same views. Also, you guys don't some of you guys don't speak proper Spanish. It's kind of different. To be honest with you, I used to be one of those. I used to be one of, like, you know what, no, we don't actually, those are not real Puerto Ricans. Those are like bootleg Puerto Ricans and whatnot. That used to be the old me. Okay, so bear with me.
So you
I
don't
was like,
so you don't look at me in that light.
no, no, not anymore. I don't see you as any different than me.
Hmm.
So it was through dialogue that I started understanding the struggles and the reality of the diasporas. And I want to encourage my fellow Puerto Ricans that still feel that way, because it's not a large group, it's a very small group, I'm gonna be honest. I want to encourage you guys to start having conversations with the diaspora, because, and I'm gonna say it in Spanish, simplemente porque nuestros jíbaros se nos fueron a los New Yorkers, son nuestros jíbaros también. If you guys you know, left because of financial situations and economic problems, but you're still our jibaros. You're still ours.
Hmm.
It was not, like I said, it was not a choice. It was a matter of survival. So rejecting you guys for making your ancestry to make that jump, and now instead of embracing you and educating you in what's going on, so that we can actually become this community that can actually help each other, like we have done in many other occasions, like with Hurricane Maria, with the earthquakes, with against Lin Manuel Miranda, and stuff like that. We have to start talking to each other and stop this division that we have. And that is something that, as a Puerto Rican, I can accept. We are letting a lot of political and social issues divide us for very little things, instead of looking at the bigger picture. If we segregate ourselves from the diaspora, we're only 2.8 million people. But if we unite with the diasporas, we're 10 million strong. So at the end of the day, we have to stop this notion that because people had a different environment where they grew up, that they're less or different than us. I still consider you American, but you're still a part of me.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, it's a lot of there's a lot of political and social maturity that has to be acquired by Puerto Ricans as a whole. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I do agree. I mean, it's just that in my case, I happened to be born in the mainland, so it wasn't like I had a choice of being born. It's just that my parents, way back in the 50s, decided to move and moved to New York, and they have to go through a lot of trials and tribulation, discrimination. The fact that they did not speak English, um, and then and then you take a look. Um, Many of us, after the first generation, you have many Nuyorican that do not speak Spanish at all. Um, I think part of it is is the over attempt that to, try to assimilate to the U.S. The fact of the matter is there is power in being bilingual.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I mean,
What
just what
have you ever? Let me ask you something. Now that we're talking about that, have you ever had like a negative encounter with some of the state taps?
to be perfectly honest, no. Now and also I'm gonna own up to something. I didn't really get all this involved with the situation in Puerto Rico until the last couple of years. So so I'm evolving, so to speak. I try to, even though I do not live in the island, it does affect me to a certain extent. At one point, I thought about retiring to live in Puerto Rico. Unfortunately, with the way the situation is now, if I was to retire to Puerto Rico, that means I will have to get involved in the social and political environments at my age. Do I really want to do that?
No, 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 no. Right now, we have to protect our older generation like gold. So no, I don't think you should get involved in that. You should do what you can without disrupting your retirement, because you have already contributed your part to society. And one thing I want to say, and this not only applies to Puerto Ricans of the island, the islanders, and the diaspora. This applies to anybody that comes from a different place or that has a diaspora here, like African Americans and Africans. You know, we need to stop shaming people for being, in this environment that it's called America, which is like a jungle, a very urban jungle that entangles our people in a day-to-day life, that it's so demanding that they don't have the freaking time nor access to any information regarding our countries. Instead of shaming them, it's time for us to start speaking up and telling them, hey, this is what's happening, this is how it's affecting us, this is the stuff that's going on. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to educate and become stronger. No more letting this whole stupidity divide us. Music only said, who is a Puerto Rican? Anyone born in Puerto Rico, or is it a bloodline? A Puerto Rican is a person that is born either from Puerto Rican parents or born in Puerto Rico, regardless of what the birth certificate said. Because if you go by the legal aspects, when I have my birth certificate and I compare it to the one of Jose's, for example, they're both going to say US citizen. Okay, so we don't do that. Americans don't do that. Either if you're born in Mississippi or in Utah, you're still an American. Then why the hell Puerto Ricans that have to come here by many different things, you know, have to be called something different other than a Puerto Rican? Okay, so just because you're based in New York or Philadelphia or Florida or Virginia, North or South Carolina or Georgia, you're still a Puerto Rican. It's something that I had to educate myself on that and understand. So definitely, it's something that is not I know that a lot of people from other communities, like you, music only. I think you're Salvadorian. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, it's a Puerto Rican. It's not just a bloodline. We're part of the United States. So regardless of where you're born, it's not going to change your status. So why are we grilling people for being born in a different municipality or a different county? It's not their fault. He was just thriving a little bit more there. Now I see that Ramon is here. What's up, Ramon?
Hey, Denise. Thanks for letting me out. What's up, Don Jose?
Good
Guys
afternoon,
doing?
Ramon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, sir.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, really quick, really quick. When it comes to the whole situation with with statehood, it will be nice. It will be nice if the whole the ideal that has been pushed by, like, say, the PNP party for decades, if it were to be true, then I wouldn't have that much to argue against. But there are issues of identity, as you already established. There are there are the issues of how things will become even more complicated. It will be more costly. They will be taxing us even more as they are. Because, okay, you mentioned that. You already mentioned that when it comes to the taxation, they say, oh, Puerto Ricans don't pay income tax. Puerto Ricans don't pay income tax. Yeah, well, how about all the extra cost that comes, for example, because of the whole ley de cabotaje? That
The Jones Act. The Jones Act
the Jones
only
Act, the
brings
ley de
400.
cabotaje,
You
all of
want to
those
know how
things add to the
much?
costs.
Do you want to know how much we pay in taxes just to have our goods imported from the US, which is the most expensive method of transportation, you know, ocean wide in the world? Those vessels are the more expensive ones. we
Yeah,
paid we paid every year $90 billion to the US. Now multiply that same value at 123 years that we have been under the boot of the US. So at
yeah,
the end of the day, we have paid more federal taxes than the whole US fucking combined.
yeah.
So, that will be removed because you don't have that same problem here in the States. So, for sure, we can afford federal taxes.
No, and that will be something that I don't know if Hawaii. I understand that Hawaii has had to deal with the same thing. I think our guy Maceo talked about that a little bit, because it's a island and they need to have things imported to them via ships. Puerto Rico needs to have things imported via ships, and unfortunately, because Puerto Rico cannot do commerce directly with other countries, which will save us money, things are still gonna be much more expensive, and we have those constraints that are very abusive. That are kind of like they are acts of war. When you impose economic sanctions, economic constraints on a country by an imperialistic power, that's an act of war. The whole invasion in 1898 was clearly an act of war. People died, blood was spilled. So we are owed for that. We are owed
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah, definitely. Not only that, look at how they have disbanded. Look, do you remember the carpeteo?
Uh-huh.
The carpeteros was basically surveillance on Puerto Ricans that were pro independence for decades,
I
and
remember.
it dismantled them. On top of that, in 1948 we had the gag law, which banned us from exposing our flag or even talking about Puerto Rican as a sovereign island for so many years, or you'll be sent to jail, to federal prison for 10 years. That's why I don't know if you experience while in Puerto Rico that you will speak about like your views and whatnot, and some of the older people will tell you like, oh, like shut up because the feds can pick you up. People have disappeared from talking like that and whatnot. Have you ever heard that notion,
Well, I
that
mean,
narrative?
I remember kind of like my grandmother. You see, my grandmother, she was born in 1919, so she lived in Puerto Rico at that time when uh, classes were still done in English, and Puerto Rican kids on the island still had to do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. That's something that when I came around, that already wasn't a thing. But that there was a time when that was forced on the children. My grandmother had to experience that.
Yeah.
But I do remember about the what was called La Carpeta de los Subversivos. That's what they were called back in the island. And I remember when the FBI ended supposedly ended that program, and they made available all the files on somebody like Ruben Berrios. Ruben Berrios had whole carts full of boxes with files and files and files done on him. They were called the subversive files, carpetas de los subversivos. And yeah, that I remember. That I remember
Yeah,
being talked about, because that's something that the FBI was very good at running from its inception. Back
of
when
course.
J.F. Hoover established the agency, they will do files on people. They will do files on whoever do they think that they perceive as some kind of a menace to the government of the United States. They will have those files. The FBI have been doing that for decades.
Yeah, yeah. In Puerto Rico, they
Mhm.
have been disrupting a lot of stuff. What I'm portraying in the screen is basically how when Yankees arrived in Puerto Rico, they started trying to educate our Jibaro, or quote unquote educate our Jibaro in the American ways. And this was the things that sometimes they will put on the newspapers. This one, I remember in college, I studied this with Professor Delgado in history. And these kids that you see here are this is the Puerto Rican. This one I believe is African American, Guam and Hawaii. So definitely, Uncle Sam is always like an authoritarian figure, and you see how the white kids are like different. We're always in like raggedy clothes and all that stuff. Those were the newspapers that were spread in Puerto Rico, like to our jibaros in the early 1900s. So to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't think Puerto Rico should become a state, and I don't think it will happen anytime soon.
No, no.
Uh,
If it was meant to be, it would have happened or already. The United States will have done. We have already seen if if there was some kind of way to profit from turning Puerto Rico into a state, and they haven't figured it out. That's why it hasn't happened. That
Yeah,
I can
it's like
assure you.
it's like what happened with Hawaii. And unfortunately, it wasn't good for the Hawaiians. I think they're expecting they're expecting for us or the austerity measures to actually pay off the debt. And then they'll consider it. But in reality, the reason why Democrats are pushing for this is because they want the electoral seats, because they believe that Puerto Ricans will be more Democrat leaning, when in reality, right now, Republicans are running Puerto Rico. So I don't know who told them that we're going to be Democrats.
if I may chime in, I think what's the situation is the automatic assumption that they're going to vote Democrat. What they fail to understand is you do have Puerto Ricans, some of them that have very conservative views, and some of those views do align more with the Republican Party. Even though I don't live in the island, the fact that the Puerto Ricans over there, and I don't mean the Blanquitos who just bought property over there and just to state that they live there. I'm talking about the actual people that should live there. They shouldn't decide for themselves, and they should be an independent nation because I do not see any benefits they have remaining as a Commonwealth. If they become a state, it's only going to supposedly benefit the Democratic Party. Because what will happen is they'll just get two additional seats in the Senate and maybe three seats in the Congress or what have you. But, I don't see how statehood is going to be a benefit to the people of Puerto Rico.
No, it's not. It's not. I'm telling you, it will be. more detrimental than beneficial. It would be more detrimental than beneficial. There's a lot of things that comes with that, you know. So definitely it will be more detrimental, in my opinion.
Hmm.
I
I
like to
agree.
speak, state my comments on this.
Yeah, go
They
ahead,
actually
Terrell.
they said a while back when Trump was in office, they the citizens voted to be a state, but the federal government never done nothing about it because Trump was in office and he didn't want to put Puerto Rico as a state because it would bankrupt. And I believe that if Puerto Rico will become a state, I believe they're going to keep the Puerto Ricans out and centrify it, make it to a tropical paradise island for the rich people, you know who. So we were going to fix up the island and kick everybody off and raise the cost of living. I believe that's what they're going to do if Puerto Rico becomes a state and going to be more mainland Americans on there than Puerto Ricans. They were going to send them somewhere else, probably like on the East Coast.
Yeah, yeah. I think, you know what? If they, I think that, look, something that we touched yesterday on with Maceo was like, it is a point that he brought up. Because Puerto Rico is a tax haven for the rich and powerful, with the law 20 and the law 22, there's no way in hell that they want their tax haven to go away. They're going to keep it. And these are the wealthy people. They don't have to pay taxes. They only pay like minimum taxes for their money in Puerto Rico. That's something that was created by our corrupt politicians to attract these gringos to Puerto Rico because they thought, well, maybe it will bring us closer to statehood. But in reality, it didn't brought us closer because now people are seeing Puerto Rico as a place that it's cheap to build in or to buy the coasts of Puerto Rico and whatnot, develop it, live there, and pay minimum taxes. Also, with the law 20 and 22, you don't have to pay taxes for the property that you're either building or purchasing because you're a foreigner that actually decided to come to Puerto Rico. So, of course, a lot of Chinese and Americans have decided to take up on this offer, and that is what's happening. So this is not something that's going to bring advantages, but to be honest with you, I mean, there are some advantages because if you think about it, I can think of like four or five. Like if Puerto Rico becomes a state, it will bring like greater benefits to the United States as a whole because every territory that has become a state has brought benefits to the US, either financial or as an attraction to foreigners to come vacation and whatnot. So, of course, it does bring that positive to Puerto Rico. Also, residents of Puerto Rico will be able to vote in the presidential elections as well as in the elections for like senators or like Congress people and whatnot. So, it will be like full participation in the democratic process. Also, Puerto Rico will have full representation in the U.S. legislature with the ability to vote on laws that affect Puerto Rico because right now our members of Congress are non-voting members. And also they cannot speak without the permission of other voting members. Another thing I can think of is like every territory which has become a state, Puerto Rico will be in a stronger economic position because, like I said before, it's going to restructure the economy of Puerto Rico because now it's part of the United States. So, of course, those draconian and apocalyptic laws have to be reshaped. And also, that will represent that jobs for local people will come naturally as Puerto Rico rebuilds. Being part of the largest U.S. economy will increase tourism. Entrepreneurship to a degree, investment in businesses in Puerto Rico instead of having to rely on like self-destructive tax loopholes. Puerto Rico will have now like the same opportunities for growth that other states have. Also, one other thing that I can think of is that there's a lot of inequalities. Like I said before, Puerto Rico doesn't have the full Bill of Rights that a lot of Americans have, even though we're US citizens. Because we have a lot of legal inequalities, like, for example, the DSNAP for the special food stamp program for disaster victims. We don't have that. We don't have the same Medicaid or family tax credits, other federal programs that Americans have, we don't have, so definitely those are positive things that I think statehood can bring. But to be honest with you, we will lose our place in the Olympics. Puerto Rico will lose its language. We will have to, like I said, pay income tax. It's so crazy. It's so crazy because there's a lot of negatives. Puerto Rico also will have to become that's a negative as well, responsible for our financial troubles, because we see this given as a reason for the United States to refuse statehood to Puerto Rico, and that shows ignorance to a degree, because it's true, we are responsible at this day for like our own mess. But to be honest with you, uh it won't necessarily change with statehood, because like I said, we're still gonna vote Puerto Ricans in. I don't see Puerto Ricans voting for a gringo anytime soon. Okay, it will take at least 100 more years for us to actually consider bringing an outsider to rule over us like that. So it will be, like I said, it has pros and cons. So definitely it's just look at at your t-shirt, that's racist. Oh my god, no, but seriously, music only, why are you asking? What if those people have a kid in Puerto Rico? Will that make the kid Puerto Rican? Of course. Anybody, look, let me tell you something. The concept of native people from a place ended in 1492. Okay, that concept, I don't care if you're admixture, like ethnically or like racially, it's like within a specific lines, which is indigenous and Caucasian and black. I don't care if that's something that people use, or that it's common in different places to have specific admixture, but the notion of people being native from a place died in 1492, the minute the Pinta, Niña, and Santa Maria landed in the Caribbean. So, when the Spanish Inquisition had its inception in the New World, the whole concept of native born people, or people that belong somewhere and they have to be a specific racial admixture, died in the West. It doesn't exist. I don't believe in that. So of course, I disagree with you on that one. If somebody is born and raised in the Puerto Rican way, of course is going to be a Puerto Rican, because it's going to behave like a Puerto Rican, walk like a Puerto Rican, sound like a Puerto Rican. Pamela says we want Latin unity, but they're cheating on Puerto Ricans and Puerto Rico. Yeah, for sure. We want unity, but in reality, to be honest with you, I believe each country has to focus on themselves. I've said this many times, people call me divisive and whatnot, but to be honest with you, I do not know a single country in the world, let alone in Latin America, that actually gets together and think the same way. We are all divided within our countries, and we don't even like other countries in Latin America, because Salvadorians don't like Mexicans, Mexicans don't like a lot of Latinos, Dominicans and Puerto Ricans every time go at it. Cubans are welcome until they say something, and then Puerto Ricans attack them, and then Cubans react, and whatever. The same happens in South America. We're not a union, and this concept should not be frowned upon. We're not, just because we all speak Spanish, that doesn't make us the same. We don't eat the same foods, we don't listen to the same music, we don't behave the same way, we don't even have the same racial admixture. So of course we're not the same people. It's just that White Sadi keeps telling us that because we all speak Spanish, we're all supposed to be this large group, to keep us confused. Because when people keep fighting each other, we don't fight the real enemy. You were gonna say something, Jose.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, okay, yes, more or less we all speak the same language, but you have certain words that have
We'll
different
be back.
meaning. Okay, like for example, you can take one word that's purely acceptable to us, but if you say it to a Mexican, or you say it to a Salvadorian, or you say it to a Cuban, or what have you, it's an offensive word. And
Okay, Denise, for real. I mean, I can understand what you just said about the differences between us, Hispanics or Latins, and with the different nationalities. Yes, the differences are there. The differences are there, but I think that the commonalities, the things that we have in common, are more important, and we value those more. So even if we have the certain differences, I don't think we're gonna be butting heads like that. On that, I don't completely agree
What do we
with what
have
you're
in
saying.
common? What do we have in common with Salvadorians?
Well, we have, unfortunately, part of that will be the colonization by the Spaniards. But I have never met a Salvadorian that I've had a beef with, and I have met a few.
No, not a beef. I'm not saying that we're beefing because, to be honest with you, I have amazing friends from all over Latin America, and I love them
Right,
like they're my
but that's
family.
because
But
that.
but
Uh-huh.
we don't have a lot of things in common. We only have two things in common: Spain and Spanish. That's it.
Okay, but why focusing on on the differences that are only gonna bring division? I would rather concentrate on the things that we can have in common culturally.
But why?
Okay, you don't want if you don't want to do that, then that's fine. Don't do
No,
it.
no,
I
no.
would rather.
But this is
Uh,
the thing. This is the thing. I'm not saying we are supposed to hate them or reject them. It's okay to unite, to celebrate that
yes.
we overcame the Spanish Empire, we survived, and some of our people are
Hmm.
still here with us and whatnot. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying let's just disband the whole concept of Latino. No, let's keep it. Now we have to have a very laser focus when it comes to our different plights, because each one of us is fighting different ways. Now if every country and every person that belongs to a collectivity focuses on that rather than just inserting themselves in other things, they will be better together, stronger together, because each person will attack the same problem that we all have from the different points that we're being attacked on.
Hmm.
That is my main problem with this whole Latin unity, is that we're never going to get along on the same page 100%. It's just something we have to accept. Human nature loves to pick little things that will differentiate me from Jose, from you, from Terrell, to actually divide people. And in reality, like I said, we have to look at similarities in smaller groups and start acting on those, because the problems that affect the United States is our common enemy when it comes to the things that Latin America wants to do. That there's no doubt on that.
Hmm.
Now, if Mexicans and Central Americans, their main issue is the immigration and the narco states that the US keeps making out of their countries. Because it's the US that actually says, oh, yeah, they can have that messed up and fucked up president. We stand behind him without looking at the issue of the people. Look at what they did in fucking, was it Honduras? That Donald Trump, just admitted, yeah, that's the president. And people were like, yo, we're being massacred here on the streets. And you're saying that that's our president so that you won't send nobody and the UN will not react to this and just let us have a democratic process. So their problem with the US is different. South America, because of their economic and their commerce that is a little bit stronger, has different issues with America trying to sell them democracy, disguising what they want to invade Venezuela for, which is their oil. Now, in the Caribbean, what we have is the commerce position. It's a different problem with the US. Also, they want to add us to them, but in an exploitative way. So if each one of us focuses on our own countries and fight that same person, but through what they do to us, it will be more beneficial for the rest of us as a whole, rather than just trying to, like, let's all together fight what? Because the Mexican and Central Americans will tell you to fight their fight first, and then we will tell them to fight our fight first, and then South Americans will tell us to fight their fight first. So of course we're not gonna get nowhere, because we're gonna be fighting about what we should fight first. That doesn't look like unity to me. That looks like a messed up group that doesn't have a leader. I don't know if you follow my point.
No, I get what you're saying. When it comes to things have to be done as a collective. You're talking about leaders are singular. Leaders are one person that can easily be targeted and taken out. Like so many leaders that are in positions of power, presidents, and all of that. The moment that they don't agree what the empire wants to do, they can easily be taken out. I mean, it's not impossible. It's not impossible that there is some ulterior motive from the empire as to why President Moise was taken out in Haiti. We still don't know what happened there. We still don't know what the facts are. But in so many instances when a country, even in Central South America, wanted to actually get something done for themselves, actually get some progress done, it was always 100% worth it. It was always the leaders were always taken out. We can't forget about that history. I mean, and definitely, different countries should be able to address the issues that are affecting the country on their own by themselves. I'm not disagreeing with that part, but
Yeah.
that whole thing, like focusing on the differences, that's not gonna help anything either.
No, no, I don't focus on the differences. I'm just saying we don't really have anything in common other than Spain and Spanish. Okay? And that's an American notion and we haven't realized that yet.
Hmm.
Look at all the countries that speak English and tell me under which umbrella they are looked at as a collectivity. I'm not saying that they're not ruled or colonies of other empires. I'm saying, where have you seen that people that just because they speak the same language are considered the same people?
But no, well, the
Nowhere in
European
the
we have.
world. Nowhere in the world. Nowhere in the world you will see that all the people that speak a language are
Mhm.
made and forced to be a collectivity, even though it doesn't work for the interests of those countries. We're still being under siege. And it's because of that. That's an American notion. The Latinidad is not something we came up with. It's not. Even our indigenous native people did knew that. They knew that from the beginning. They have different empires for a reason because they knew that was the only way that they could work, prosper, and succeed. They needed to segregate a little bit and focus on their own people first. And then, the Americas was like this magic empire of indigenous people. But you didn't saw natives from the US, the Chippewas and the Cherokees and the
Mhm.
Mayans and the Aztecas and the Incas and the Caribs and the Arahuacans and the Tainos. You didn't saw them all together. They were different people. They embraced who they were and they thrived in that. So why are we supposed to focus and be lumped as a group when it goes against all of our interests? Because me putting my interests first in the Latino collectivity will harm Mexicans, will harm Central Americans, will harm South Americans because they have pressing issues as well. So we cannot even imagine if all Latin countries were to come together and name a leader of a movement. Do you think we will reach a decision anytime soon?
The leader will be targeted. I mean, other groups, even here in the United States, they do things as a group. They do things in what is in their best interest as a group without naming a specific leader. We shouldn't be concentrated
But
on
Joe
naming
Biden is a
one single leader that can be taken out, that can be
of
assassinated.
course they have a leader. They have Joe Biden. The person of the president of the United States, no matter if it's Republican or
Mhm,
Democrat, is the
mhm.
leader of the free world, the quote unquote free world. So of course, he can be taken out, but Kamala Harris will take his place because that's how you plan things. You plan things 5 or 6 steps ahead, and if she's taken out, God forbid, uh, the Secretary of State will take over, and so and so and
Um,
so.
excuse me. I hate to contradict you, Denise, but actually, in the royal succession, if the president and the vice president is no longer, able to function, it would be the Speaker of the House that would take over, and that would mean Nancy Pelosi would become president.
It will
Yeah, will
be
become an acting president because that's the hierarchy when it comes to that.
so,
Yep.
but they still have a structure. That's what I'm saying.
Hmm.
Either if this is the decision that Latinos have to make as a collectivity, who will be the group of leaders in what hierarchy we're going to position them, and if we are to become a freaking empire, or everybody should just act on their own and attack the same problem. We can come together to discuss our progress, but we have to either divide or completely turn into an empire. That's the only two choices we have.
Denise, be careful because then you could start speaking like some of the Hispanotypes.
No, no, I don't want the dead to America. I just want our people to prosper. We have to make a choice. We either want to become an empire on our own, or with a line of succession, if some of our leaders fall to the whole thing, or if we want to just unite within ourselves and fight the same problem from different points that are affecting different sectors of our communities. So, of course, like I said, I am a supporter of everybody fighting their own little wars and attacking the problem that's affecting them, because I believe it's more effective, it will be faster, and we will involve less wars and none of this stuff. It will involve more diplomatic measures. So definitely, I don't believe we should all sum the whole, like put it in a lump sum, like the whole Latin America. That, to me, that's becoming Americanized, thinking that we're all the same people, because we are not. We really are not. We are completely different.
The problem is with empires. You have to have a line of succession. Now, if you take a look at the so-called British Empire, which is basically the United Kingdom, um, when Queen Elizabeth does die, Prince Charles will be King Charles or whatever his name is going to be, and if he dies, and the next person in line. One of the problems that the Roman Empire had was, for the most part, they did not have a line of succession. There was a lot of civil wars, particularly in the third century, when in about a 50-year period, you had like about 26 emperors, because you had one person that would be an emperor for a while, and then someone would launch a coup, and then that person would be emperor for a while, and then they'll be launch another coup. That's how you get the crisis of the third century, because there is no logical order of succession.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. And it's so crazy because, like I said, it's something. I know it's something that people, it can be interpreted in different ways. When people, like I said, people call me divisive because I think like this. But I'm looking at it without any emotions. We're not saying hate your fellow Latinos. We're just saying empower them to fight for their people, because it's the first. You have to take care of home first before you take care of the community. In your community, Jose, do you take care of your bills first, or you go out and pay somebody else's
No, I
mortgage?
take care of my bills, and then if
Exactly.
I'm able to help others, I will do that. But you know something? That was the same type of philosophy that my mother, God rest her soul, taught us.
Yeah, that doesn't mean you, to respond to like what Ramon, what you were saying, that doesn't mean we're gonna hate on our neighbors. In the
No, I didn't say
contrary.
anything about hating. I didn't say anything about hating. I said that we shouldn't be focusing on the differences. The differences are there. I'm not saying that there are no differences, but I wouldn't be focusing on that. And I didn't say anything about hating.
But in all fairness, if we're going to work together, we have to acknowledge the fact that differences are there. So how
Yeah.
we can do to deal with the differences and see where we can have common ground.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Admitting that there is an issue, admitting that there is a difference is the first step to overcoming it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
yeah. But
that's how I
that's
look at it.
but you're saying that, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, Ramon, but like,
Uh-huh.
I'm not trying to focus on the differences. I just
Yeah,
simply stated that we are different. And
yeah.
I ask you, what do we have in common? Like, as a Puerto Rican, what do we have in common with a Salvadorian, for example?
Okay, well, I have met a few Salvadorians, and I have found myself to have just about the same values when it comes to points of view, to seeing things, how we kind of like we interact with each other, kind of like aspects on not necessarily well not the religion part because I know that most of us are Catholic. I'm not religious really, but I respect other people's rights to have a religion. But the ease of interaction with people that have been of of other countries, including Salvadorians, that you keep bringing them up, is what I say that is why I say that there are things that we have in common when it comes to the interaction, to when it comes to getting along with them, when it comes to uh, uh, seeing what is good in each other, the ease of we being able to do that. That's what I will focus on. That's what I will concentrate on. Okay, there are differences because they are under a different flag. They come from a different land, but they're still my fellow Hispanics, and I still see them kind of like people worth allying with. Now, I get it that when you try to throw in the whole unity thing, to some people, the whole thing about unity means that somebody has to lose their identity. And that's not true. I do believe in alliances. When it comes to alliances, people can can get together for the things that they can help each other for and not lose who they are as a people when it comes to their identity, when it comes to their nationality, when it comes to their culture. They don't have to to lose none of that. But also seeing what we have in common and being able to have an alliance based on that. I mean that's not impossible. Okay, you don't think that that can happen? Fine. I'm not gonna try to convince you otherwise, but you could be underestimating us. We are distracted. We do need to find a way to overcome the differences. We have differences, yes, but I think it can be done. It can be done. We shouldn't underestimate ourselves when it comes to that.
I don't look. I think you misunderstood me a little bit.
Hmm.
Because I'm not saying it alliances should just we just like I said before, we should not sever or get rid of the Latinidad or the concept of Latinos.
Hmm.
That should stay. It's a reality. We all overcame Spain. That alone is one of the most notorious things that make us a group. Okay, we all have the same wound. Now, like what I'm saying is basically in our lifetime or at least 100 years from now, I do not see us working through our differences. And that is a reality we have to accept. The proof of that is that it's been almost 200 years and we have not overcome those differences. We have become even more hostile to each other. And I say we because all of us are in this together. So no, like I said, I don't see this happening. What is more beneficial, that's what I'm focusing on right now. What will be more beneficial is to, like, hey, we gave this almost 200 years, we gave this a try, and it's going to be very hard for every one of us to look past our differences and just align with each other to actually become very united as a solid group. Now, I love the fact that you brought the word alliance. We can be allies. That's more doable. And allies, what allies do, I think you and me basically are saying the same thing, because allies help each other for a common goal. And our common goal is to be freed of this post colonial status we have in the new world. And the way that, in my opinion, we can do that faster is by each one of us focusing on home first and operating from that basis rather than just trying to become a collectivity like the Americans want us to be. And then, then somehow, somewhere, someone leading, or one of us, because somebody will have to guide the group, or at least an organization will have to guide the group, because right now in the Latino community, there's not an agenda. There's not an itemized agenda of what are we really fighting. You know what? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
So definitely, it's like I said, like right now, we really are pressed for all of our issues. I see, like I said, I see Mexicans and Central Americans being brutalized right now in ICE detention centers. That's not something we have in common. Therefore, we're going to always prioritize our statehood and our free associate state status over their issue, because it's also making our people poor and suffer. So of course, we're not going to have a lot of time to help each other like we would if we were to be united. So of course, we have to focus on that. We have to focus on, in my opinion, at least we have to focus on home. But I respect your point of view.
Yeah, that's
Um,
all I ask. Just that's all I can ask right now.
Yeah, no, definitely. Rakim says, I definitely see Ramon's perspective, having a unified front and standing strong in numbers for a common goal that'll benefit all Latinos.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I see his point of view, because, it's not, and I don't take it personal. I don't think you're like attacking or anything. I just feel like you have a different point of view that is valid as well. Pamela says the Latino diaspora and African diaspora are in the same situation. On simple, small stuff, we're good, but on bigger situations, we'll end up fighting each other because everyone has different needs. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that divide us the most, is that we have different needs, and we, like I said, we can't help but prioritize our people's needs before the collectivity needs. So it's something that, hi, real deal, what's up? So it's something that, like I said, it's something that we should think on and make a choice, because it's like I said, we either come all together and start a movement or start a board. That's another thing that I even used to think before. Why we don't take three representatives from each Latin country and just form like an organization for the benefit of all Latinos? It's just more easier said than done. So of course I say, you know what, we have to start small. So definitely it's something that pushed me more to this line of thinking than I am now. Jose, what do you think about this? What's your take?
Okay. I think what we need to acknowledge the fact that there are differences with us. I mean, there's differences with Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, differences with Salvadorians and Mexicans and what have you. There's some things we're just not going to agree upon because our experiences are different. The fact that the matter, Puerto Rico has never been an independent nation. That's different from our brothers and sisters in other parts of Latin America. Now, I think we must acknowledge the differences that are there and then try to come up where there are areas that common ground. Now, one area that we all have agreed upon, other than the fact that we were free from, well, most of us were free from Spain, and we all speak Spanish, is that races look all us in the same boat. So it's
Yeah.
like there's no difference between a melanated Latino and a non-melanated Latino. There's no difference between uh, people who are first generation diaspora people compared to those who live in our respective Latin American countries. Unfortunately, races look all us the same way.
Well, I personally am not really concerned with what the racists have to
The
say
race.
about that and how they see us. I'm really not
I, I
concerned with
I
that because
understand that, but what
being
I
concerned with that is
understand.
giving them power. I'm not giving them that power, so I'm not thinking about it. I'm not caring about what they're saying. I care about what my fellow Hispanics will say. We're having differences. Okay, yes, that has already been agreed on, and I would rather focus on trying to work out those differences with fellow Hispanics because they are the people. You are the people that I care about, not what the racists think. Hell with them. To
Right.
hell with
I
them.
understand. I understand that, but the problem is with the Hispano types who try so much to be white, who try so badly in vain to think they're from Spain. And the fact of the matter is, if they were to try to do that nonsense in Spain, they're going to be laughed at.
Oh no, I would welcome them to show up to Spain and talk to the Spanish immigration officials, talking about I'm back, my brothers and sisters, my Spanish brothers and sisters. Let's see what they tell them. They're gonna start asking me where you're from. Let me see your passport. Uh, which country are you from? What's the capital of the country that you claim that you're from? They will start listening to their accents, trying to figure out what they're really from because they scrutinize them. I saw a program about that when they were kind of like videotaping that like the processes of certain Hispanics that show up in Spain, and the immigration officials will be asking them questions and asking them questions and listening to their accent, trying to figure out where they were really from because apparently there are many Hispanics that show up in Spain with forged passports. I mean, they're not really that welcoming. They're not really that welcoming of us over there. Nothing.
Really?
Yeah.
I've
Nothing.
never been to Spain, so I don't know. You have to educate me on that one.
Yeah, there was a program that I saw. It was kind of like a reality type of program in which they were showing part of the immigration process in Spain and how a lot of Hispanics show up in Spain and they might have like forged passports and they end up getting deported back because they are not being seen as one of them. I mean,
Oh,
they'll kick people out. I mean, they'll get people get deported. Hispanics can't just show up in Spain talking about that they're returning home. They can't show up there talking that smack because they're gonna get deported really quick. And it happens. It happens. A lot of people do get deported. And there are political parties over there that are moving for even, from my understanding, I could be wrong, but they are moving for even more restrictions of Hispanics being able to be allowed any kind of residence in the country. I mean,
oh
they're
wow.
not really into us like that. I mean, I don't have a problem with an individual Spaniard, but
Mhm.
they consider themselves to be still part of Europe. Maybe the French will disagree with that, but they still see themselves as part of Europe. They are part of the European Union.
Yeah, yeah. And that you know of, Ramon, is what regulations, like let's say for example, like a Latino wants to move there, like what regulations do they will like go through while trying to establish themselves or quote unquote return home?
No, because I don't think there is such a thing as a right of return. Israel has that. Israel
Okay.
has such a thing. If they can establish that they have at least one Jewish grandparent, that gives them right to return to return home, so to speak. Spain doesn't have such a thing. They do have regulations when it comes to their immigration process, and there are Hispanics that do get to live in Spain, but they feel marginalized to a degree. So they are not being treated as the same as them. I mean, we already know that. So I wouldn't trip too much about wanting to be accepted by Spain. Again, I don't have a problem with the individual Spaniard because I have
Mhm.
met a couple in my life. I don't know one right now, So I don't really have a problem with them individually, but I'm talking about the government. They don't really care about us over here. We need to let that go. We need to focus on us, concentrate on us that are over here already. Okay, yeah, we got the language from them. Uh, okay, fine, but they still not see us as exactly the same as them. I mean, nothing against them, but let's focus on us over here.
I would like OG Del Rancho. I would like Chivo 2121 and
Mhm.
some of these Hispano taps to go to Spain and try to say, "Hey, hermano, mira, yo soy aquí,"
Yeah,
and see them get laugh at their faces for the. I mean, hey, you're not one of us. Get the hell out of here.
yeah. Like, laugh at them if they don't get deported on the spot. I mean, I would love to see that to see that being filmed, then getting there and talking about like they're returning home. I mean, I would like to see them tape that and the whole thing. What happens after that? Because they're gonna be
No
recording
editing.
them.
No editing, right, Ramon? No
No,
editing.
no editing at all. To see the whole thing, whatever the outcome is of them showing up, talking about that they're returning home. I want to see the whole thing. Let's see what happens. Yeah, yeah, to see if they're gonna be welcome with open arms as they want to claim. But the thing is that maybe to a degree they already know that. That's why they haven't made the move yet. I would respect them for them if they go on and on talking about how great Spain is, and if they were to move there, I will respect them for it. But they're not doing that.
No, they're
They're not
Yeah.
not.
doing it.
They're not gonna do that because they're gonna get a reality check. Just like Guillermo Escobar Vasquez is talking about death, death to the United States. I mean, well, he's sucking on the teeth of the great Satan. I mean, he's not gonna leave the
Mhm.
U.S. to go back to Colombia or whatever it is because he's having it too good over here. But yet, the U.S. is the great Satan.
It's the
Yeah.
same. Is I don't know if you think like this, Ramon, but it's the same with the state taps, that live in Puerto
Ah,
Rico. They want Puerto Rico to become a state, but they are never moving here to the States. And I'm like, that's so crazy that you want something to come to you that you have never experienced.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a bit of a paradox for the islanders that have that belief, because I can understand it. I can understand it better, that coming from somebody who is from the diaspora, who has been born and raised in an actual state of the union. That's perfectly understandable. But that coming from somebody who is an islander who has never lived in a state, but they want the statehood for the island so badly, not knowing what comes with it, is kind of like a paradox to me. So I don't understand that. I'm not understanding that too well.
Uh, don't even bother to try because if you're going to try to understand that, your brain cells will begin to deteriorate.
Oh no, it will be a waste of time. No, sir, I'm not bothering with that, because there are certain people that you can't really try and explain things to them, because it will take you a month. It will be a lot of time wasted, a lot of energy wasted, a lot of brain cells wasted. And if somebody needs to understand something, they need to pick up material and do their reading and do their understanding on their own. I mean, you can't be holding their hand through understanding something. They have to do that on their own. They have to, especially if they are grown people, if they are grown adults, they need to do that on their own. I mean, you can't try and convince other people of things. I don't do that. I don't do that. I may stand on a position. I may stand on a situation, but I'm not trying to get into an argument with any of you guys about trying to change your mind. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to do that. I don't
Yeah,
try to
look,
do that.
we just disagreed on something and you never try to convince me otherwise. Like, hey,
No, no, no.
yeah,
I'm not trying to do that. Definitely
Uh,
not.
Denise,
yeah, go ahead, Jose.
now we have the state taps, we have the diverse taps, we have the
Uh-huh.
Hispanic taps, and then we have the slow taps. So how many more groups of taps are we going to have before they can form their own nation?
Well, you said on Instagram that stupid is stupid people are becoming a large demographic.
Yes.
So of course, it's growing. The TAPS community is growing,
Uh,
and God forbid that they procreate, because
uh,
if they
yeah, yeah, yeah.
procreate, exactly like Ramon said, ay ay ay.
No, no,
I
no,
have
but,
one. I have one. This is my expression.
hey, but I don't know much about the whole the divest steps. The divest steps. Are we talking about race on that one?
Oh my God, no,
Because
we're
that's
talking
something that I
about.
kind of avoid because
Look, we're talking about. Yeah, I try to avoid it too. Like I said, everybody should just be who they are, and if you take things to a different level, I'm out. But
uh,
so that's what I do with this whole race talk. Like, I'm tired of arguing about race with people. One thing I would say is the divest steps goes back to this whole gender war.
uh-huh.
So basically, in America, you know that men and women are literally going at each other,
Mm-hmm,
and that doesn't exclude the African American
mm-hmm,
community. So you have a select group of men and women in the African American community that have decided to stop investing in the community and divest from it. But usually, these groups of people are divesting from black men, the notion of black men.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So instead of, I mean, I don't have a problem with them divesting with, outside of the community. They can actually divest. They are the owners of their lives. My thing is, if I'm not investing in something and I decided to segregate it myself from Bank of America, I should
Mm-hmm.
not have a say of what Bank of America does with other people's money. Don't you think?
Right,
So
right.
why come back and just insert yourself in circles that are predominantly run by black males to just say black men are trash, black men ain't shit, black men are bad, black men are this, black men are that, and then they keep going at it. I'm like, but you divested.
No, they're not really divested. I doubt it. I doubt it. I'm
Me
convinced.
too.
I'm convinced that those women and the guys too. I'm not somebody who is into talking about what's going on in another race group in another race. But I will say this one thing, and I'll leave it alone. I'll leave it alone because I know that it's not really my place when it comes to the whole diversity, specifically when it comes to Black Americans, African Americans. That's kind of like a cry for help to each other. When you hear because in years past the whole divestment when it comes to black women, that's a relatively new thing, but in years before that there were certain black men that will put up videos up on YouTube that I came across many of them that will go on and on about how black women ain't shit, how white women are better, how white women are more submissive, how white women are are more ideal for black men, and how black women are worthless and they're disgusting and things like that. I have come across many videos like that without trying to get too controversial on it. I'm just telling you what I
They're
have
coming
seen.
for you. They're coming for you,
Already?
Ramon.
Already? Oh well.
Keep
Okay.
going, keep
No,
going.
but those women are going anywhere. Those guys that talk shit about black women, they're not going anywhere because they claim to be the passport gang and they're gonna get their passports because they're gonna get with a spicy Latina or something like that. Those guys are usually not going anywhere.
The
I wouldn't be too worried
divestors.
about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
me, the
they talk. They're
divestors.
just talking shit. They're just talking shit. They're just trying to gaslight or whatever. But in the end, they know that that will have to really level up and if they're gonna be getting with a woman of a higher value from another community or something like that nah, they're not going
Yeah,
anywhere.
I
And the same
think.
with the black women, they're not going anywhere. They're
Yeah.
talking a whole bunch of shit, trying to trigger black men, but at the same time they want black men. They want black men, and that's all I'm gonna say about that because it's not really my place to talk about that subject. But that's what I have observed. That's what I
Yeah.
have observed, and that's what my understanding,
I
and that's how
agree.
I see
I
it.
agree. I
Hmm.
agree because 80% of black men are still marrying black women. Now my thing is it's like I've always said to the divest steps. you know, you can't be cheating on the man simply because you did not got the results you wanted. The same goes for the males that are doing the same thing towards the woman. You
Yeah.
know, if you are talking shit but your results are trash,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you're trash.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. It's you. It's a because you cannot expect another group, another collectivity to actually, embrace your what you're lacking. If you're not a man of substance, either African American, white, Latino, Asian, Middle Eastern,
Yeah. Yeah.
if
Whatever
you're
the
not a
race.
yeah, if
Hmm.
you're not a man of substance, it's not a matter of your ethnic group. It's simply you're not a man of substance. Therefore, you're not going to get mad at the woman in your collectivity because they don't want to take trash. The
Yeah.
same goes for the woman. If you don't behave in a specific way that is appealing to your men, if you don't address them in a specific way, if you don't treat them with respect, if you don't try to work on what a man values, and you don't present the things that they want, you're not gonna get picked. You're not gonna marry. And it's not just a thing about black men. It's
Hmm.
just all men across the board. Because if that was the case, then where are the men trying to come marry you from other communities?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if the problem wasn't you, you should be married.
Yeah.
Because that happens. We've seen it, when actually it's just that in your vicinity, you cannot. I have a African American chick on my Instagram that we've been Instagram friends for a while. She divested from her community and decided to be with this white dude, but
Uh
she's
huh.
married, and she's been married for 6 years to this white dude. And
Hey,
I'm
good
like,
for
and the
her.
problem wasn't her. And then she said it, I don't have anything against black men. It's just that I never met a good one in my lifetime.
Mm.
So you have to respect those cases, but you never see her bashing black men. That's my thing.
Exactly.
When
Exactly. That's the
that's
thing.
that's the thing. That's the key, is the bashing. When you have to bash, is because you want that attention, and internally you have to work through your issues to actually get what you want. You're just throwing a tantrum. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, but unfortunately, there are some of these women, who I'm referring to, that they they have platforms where there is no accountability for them, and they stay blaming men for everything. Now, across the board, regardless of race, a lot of women blame men for everything. As men, we know this. As a man myself, I know this because
Yeah,
I've had to deal
it's
with
true.
that. with, with,
Even
uh,
in, even in
with
our
our own
community,
women coming
even
coming.
in Puerto Rico, don't
That's what
we
I'm
have?
saying.
Weren't we
Uh,
talking yesterday about the feminist collectivity in Puerto Rico? That happens in every community. Our community suffers from the same thing.
Yeah,
So it's just more like an individual thing, like how you present yourself as a person and what you really contribute to the actual dating market,
yeah,
rather than your ethnic group. So definitely, to be honest with you, it's something that all of us have to work on. And if it's like I said, if you're not getting the results you want in life, in anything, that doesn't necessarily just apply to dating. If you're not getting the results and you try different avenues and the results are still the same, the
yeah,
problem is you.
yeah. The
And
problem
it's time.
is the common denominator there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the
The-
common the person is the common denominator, because if they're getting the same result in trying in different platforms in different places, and the results are still the same, it's the person's all fault. But there are many people that won't admit to it. They won't take accountability for themselves, and there are and that's a problem. That's a problem because they will live their whole lives blaming someone else. They will live their whole life putting all the accountability and responsibility on someone else, but not taking any on their own for their own. And it's problematic for society because other people
yeah.
are gonna have to deal with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like I said, it's something that's internal. We have to actually work on ourselves. That's something that I had to work on myself. I always say it all the time. I used to be very masculine, and I had to accept that in order to change it. Because the first step of changing something that's negative and doing some harm to you is to accept that it's wrong. Because if it's not broken, then why fix it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So definitely it starts with ourselves rather than with other people. Now,
Yeah.
guys, I'm gonna start wrapping this up. I want to encourage everybody that's coming in to like the video and also to subscribe if you haven't done so. So,
Hmm.
Jose, final thoughts of today's topic. Will Puerto Rico ever become a state?
Like I said, Denise, it's more likely that I will become Pope than Puerto Rico become a state. So everybody had to start addressing me as Your Holiness. So, but as always, thank you for allowing me to be in the stream. Ramon, it's always a pleasure to hear from you.
Yes, sir.
Now, as you can see, the mentally and intellectually challenged community is growing exponentially. Now we got a new group of taps called the stick taps. So
Mhm.
pretty soon, if they're not careful, they're going to become their own nation. And God help us when it happens. I just want to say, as always, Denise, you always bring forth great topics to discuss. Of course, I'm going to close the same way, but this time I'm just going to say it in Spanish. Por favor, tenga cuidado cuando anda afuera, porque todavía está peleando con el COVID-19. Y tenga cuidado con todo ese tipo de slow tips, porque si quiera pegar muy a ellos, entonces vamos a ser enfermados por estupidez.
In case they don't speak English, now they got the message.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you
Thank
have the English translation, go to Denise's streams and you see my response in English.
Thank you very much, Jose. I will put you backstage as well. Thank you for your insight. Ramon, final thoughts on today's topic. Will Puerto Rico ever become a state?
I'm gonna tell you what I'm always telling others, and I mentioned that earlier on this stream. The first thing is that if the United States, since they are, unfortunately are our colonizer, they will have found a way, they will have figured out a way to make it profitable for them. If as it is, as in comparison to now, Puerto Rico will have already become a state. Back in 1917, they basically imposed the citizenship on us, but that was because there was something for them to gain, and that was the draft for the First World War. But the since in all this time they haven't figured out a reason as to why it will be better for Puerto Rico to become a state, Puerto Rico hasn't become a state. They haven't figured that out, a way that it will be for better for them to gain, profitable for them, not for us, but for them. They haven't found a reason for to do that. That's why they haven't done it, because they haven't found a reason why it will be more profitable for them. So it's not happening anytime soon. If it hasn't happened in the last 123 years, then it's not likely that it's going to happen in the next 123 years. It is unfortunately it is unfortunate, but what I will have to move on to suggest will be some kind of autonomy, a level of autonomy, economic autonomy that will allow uh, Puerto Rico to get better. But it will involve a level of discipline from the leadership. Unfortunately, Puerto Rico doesn't have a disciplined leadership that will actually work and actually do things that will be beneficial for the people of the island, for Puerto Rico, for our legacy, for our land, our island, our what really makes us who we are. And it's very saddening, it's very frustrating, but it will have to start for things to get better in Puerto Rico. It will have to start with having a more disciplined leadership that will actually have a commitment to work in the best interest of the people of the island and for the island itself. So that's why I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And with that, I'll say, Denise, thanks once again for letting me on your platform and letting me on your panel. Even if it is to disagree with you a little bit, I still love you. And thanks for having me.
Me too, me too. But you know what? We need disagreements because we need different points of view.
Yes.
and I love that. So
Yes.
of course disagreements are always welcome, and thank you, Ramon, for bringing them on, because otherwise this will be an echo chamber, and that's not what we're trying to do.
No,
So
no, we don't need that.
thank you very much for bringing your points of view in with actual facts, which
Yes.
is why I always tell people, there's no problem with us not agreeing on everything. Just bring the facts instead of going to like personal blows.
No, no, no. I could
Uh,
never do that. No, no, no.
yeah,
That's
so
not my
thank you
thing.
very much. And like I said, I still love you too. You're my fellow Boricua.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
no problem there. I'm
Muy
gonna
bien.
put you backstage. Don't go anywhere. Guys, in my opinion, I have to agree with Ramon and Jose. Statehood is not something that I see in our future. It's not something that I see happening in our lifetimes. So of course, like I said, it's something that it will have to be worked on. So for sure, guys, if you think that there is another path to statehood for Puerto Rico, if you think this is something that will happen, let me know in the comment section. Also, if you agree with us that it's not going to happen, let us know in the comment section as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And also, before I leave, don't forget to follow me on Instagram, denise.gonzalez.villegas1, so that you can keep up with everything that's happening in Latin America and our Latin diaspora. So sometimes I don't have the time to make a video on all the things that are happening, but I discuss them over there. So make sure you follow me on Instagram. Another thing that I wanted to say is that Melanated Nights Echo Chamber just launched its first video. It was like a soft opening of the channel. It's bringing different things. I don't know if Melanated Night is in the room. So definitely if you're in here, Melanated Night, make sure you put the link to your um, channel for people to see. I'm gonna try to find it before I go, but definitely, guys, like I said before, I don't see this whole statehood happening because of so many things. It's going, like I said, it's going to be more detrimental for Puerto Rico, especially now that we're in such a bad position, than beneficial. So definitely, I'm putting the link for MK's echo chamber for people that want to subscribe. So definitely, guys, like I said, it's something that I don't see happening in the near future, and I don't even think Congress has an interest on doing that. So of course, we will continue to probably be in the same position that we are, and until further notice. So, guys, that has been everything for today. Thank you very much for tuning in on a beautiful Sunday. I hope you have an amazing week and you have recharged your batteries. And, this is a week where we're going to stay productive and active. So, I will return tomorrow at my usual time slot, which is 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, and also Thursday. So, make sure you tune in for tomorrow. I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you very much. Peace.